Welcome to this week's Bulldog Breakdown. Buck Belue and Hutson Mason. Hut, let's break it down as we get ready for Georgia, Florida, in Jacksonville. Good to see that contract extended, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think this is kind of, I think people like you and I and outside folks love talking about it. I think the players are just, hey, put me in Atlanta, put me in Athens, home and home, wherever. They just like playing it. And, there's a lot of tradition down there in Jacksonville, so it's good to see. I know Kirby is wanting it to change, or at least
he's all in now.
Yeah,
the decision's been made. Kirby said he's all in now.
I'm buying it. Coach talk, the recruiting angle. We know that it's 1 weekend.
Recruiting comes first with Kirby.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room as Georgia gets ready to face Florida, and that is the Georgia passing game. Man-to-man coverage is really giving this passing game a lot of trouble. They've had 3 weeks since the South Carolina debacle to get ready for this showdown in Jacksonville. What do you expect, if anything, to be different?
I can't say that I really have a whole lot of faith that I'm going to see a lot of things different in the passing game. I mean, you and I talked off air. This is the same offense that Jim Chaney was using last year, and we've just seen a lack of creativity of getting the ball in space. And, if you look at the numbers, whether it's passing yards per game, they're pretty similar this year to last year. So I think those things are what make it hard to figure out why Georgia, from an optical standpoint, looks like they're kind of have plateaued offensively. So I think this is all about how can Coley get his guys in space, whether it's more perimeter runs. Nobody can tackle DeAndre Swift in space. So I would be thinking whether it's screens, whether it's, Zamir White on some screens. We don't see a lot of RPOs. Everybody runs RPOs, and we don't see any RPOs as maybe some up-tempo offense. I always thought that Todd Grantham struggled getting his plays in and getting his guys lined up because he always tries to call the perfect play. We haven't really seen Georgia use any type of up-tempo offense. So those are some things that I'm hoping, as Kirby said, they went out and scouted teams across the country the past 2 weeks that they've picked up on and try to implement against the Gators.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I'd love to see is to come out and have a new wrinkle or two in the passing game, whether it's the trips and then using the trips as a rub to get a running back loose against man-to-man coverage. It'd be great to see Cager back in there. Fromm's got confidence in him, but I just wonder how much he will be able to hold up coming in with a dinged-up shoulder, dinged-up rib cage. As soon as he gets hit, how does he hold up?
Yeah.
I just don't know how that's supposed to happen. Pickens and Blaylock hopefully have been coached up over the last 3 weeks, looking for some kind of wrinkle. I think Robertson's a guy that can get open against man-to-man coverage. And the one I'd like to see targeted against man coverage, as far as Georgia goes, is Swift out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And target him against these safeties. I think that's the Georgia advantage. But this passing game's got to be better. They need to hit a few big plays to loosen up this Gator defense.
And I think, traditionally we've seen Georgia come out and they're thinking run to set up the pass. We're going to run first, and then we'll do play action pass. What about maybe changing that up, using the pass to set up the run? Because Florida's going to come out and they're going to load the box, and they're going to say, if we can stop the run, then we're going to play man outside with Marco Wilson and C.J. Henderson, and Florida's going to feel like they have that advantage. So some spacing, anything in the passing game that maybe loosens that box up, and Georgia's going to have the advantage running the football with that offensive line in the run game.
Yeah, keep in mind this Gator defense, not real good against the run game, and big boy football this season, the legitimate competition. They've been lit up in the run game. Look for Georgia to try to take advantage of that. Dogs defense, all right, the havoc rate's got to go up in this game.
It does. If you look at their sacks, I think total sacks, team sacks are right around 15 or 16, which if you compare that to all the teams trying to compete for the college football playoff, it's significantly low. Georgia, I believe, is right around 50th in the country in turnover margin at +1, so not enough turnovers, not enough sacks. And remember, the big talk for Florida this year is they lost 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line. And, you just have to find a way to disrupt Kyle Trask, who's playing much better football, and especially with those 4 receivers, Pitts, Van Jefferson, Georgia's secondary. To help that secondary out, you got to get pressure.
Well, I'm expecting the havoc rate to just be done by linebackers and defensive backs in this game. I just can't imagine suddenly we wake up and we're able to get to Trask and sack the quarterback. Looking for a good coverage on the backside, trying to limit some of these Florida explosive plays they've been getting. We'll come back on the other side, talk about how the Dogs win and how the Gators might pull off the victory. That's next here on the Bulldog Breakdown. Be a part of radio history here in Atlanta by securing the 680 The Fan 25th Anniversary Retro T-shirt, like Hutson Mason and I are wearing right now.
Great thing is all proceeds will go to a great cause. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, all the great folks over there will benefit from it. You can get your shirt and hat, trucker hat. That's always great for the summertime. 680thefan.com/retrobuck. People may get that confused with Metro because we're going to look so good in it.
Don't fool around. Do it now and be looking good. Buck Belue hanging out with Hutson Mason. Let's talk about how Georgia wins this game. I'd like to see a fast start offensively. 10 points in the last 2 games in the first half.
Yeah.
That's not enough in these big games. Got to come out with a better plan, execute the plan, score some points early in the game.
Yeah, and I think, look, Georgia should win this game. And if you look at stars or you believe in stars, usually those have a direct correlation to talent. Georgia has recruited at a higher level. They've got more blue chip players on this. So this is a game Georgia should win. But that's just on paper. And so, I think every team wants to start fast. I think the turnover margin obviously is important. When Georgia takes care of the football and they run the football well, they win games, bottom line. So I think Georgia has more depth on both sides of the football. Florida's getting back Grenard, their linebacker, and Jabari Zuniga, their best pass rusher. But the one thing Florida doesn't have that Georgia has is depth. So you think about just wearing down that offense and defensive line. You mentioned how Florida's not very good against the run. I got to imagine late in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, that's when you kind of break that defense will to tackle if you stay committed to running the football, and that's what Georgia's strength is.
Yeah, and that's the philosophy of one Kirby Smart. Keep chopping wood and watch him break in the second half. DeAndre Swift is a guy I think that will touch the ball more than any other player in this Georgia-Florida game. I would imagine he's going to touch it 25 times, somewhere around that number. Florida's not good against the run. Look for Swift to have a big day. I'd like to see him targeted in the passing game against man-to-man and take advantage of that matchup opportunity. Defensively, I don't see Georgia giving up a lot of big plays in this game. And it's not because they're sacking the quarterback. That's the way the coverage is set up. Little umbrella coverage, play it underneath. Don't allow them to hit the big 70-yard play.
Well, this is by far the best receiving core. And then you throw in Kyle Pitts, this big, lanky tight end for Florida that Georgia secondary has seen, period, all year. So it's going to be a huge task. Hopefully it looks like Tyson Campbell's going to be back. He'll help that secondary. But I'm extremely fascinated to see Florida and Kyle Trask and this offense. They like to go fast. They like to run the quarterback. I mean, there's so many different elements to this game that you feel like you got to watch out for. And you can't forget Kyle Trask can move and make plays with his legs as well. So, but these 4 receivers plus that tight end for the skill positions for the Gators are really good.
All right, so how do you see Florida winning this game?
Well, I think they got to create turnovers. Again, if you look at the penalties and the turnovers and they're even, Georgia should win this ball game. I think they've got to find a way to create some havoc on Jake, whether that's some sacks, and we know Florida's defensive line, Todd Grantham, really good at that, but I think they need a couple turnovers. DeAndre Swift isn't going to put the ball on the ground, never does, so I think it's got to come through the air and figuring out a way to confuse Jake Fromm and a couple interceptions. And if they win the turnover margin, I think that's the only way they can beat Georgia.
Yeah, I see the Gators' victory would be they continue to do what we've seen done here. They limit Swift in the run game and now force Georgia to throw the ball out of passing situations, and then they're able to clamp down with the man-to-man coverage. And then you see on the other side, you see Trask has protection, and he's able to spread the ball around to these playmakers enough to walk away with a victory there. But look, this is Judgment Day, really for both programs. Yeah. You lose this game and you're done. Now, Florida maybe not expecting to have the season Georgia expected to have, so this is a huge game for the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart. This is a must-win. Otherwise, people will look at this season as being a fail.
They absolutely will. And you talk about recruiting. Kirby has ran circles around Dan Mullen in recruiting, but this would be a huge win for the Florida Gators program to kind of launch them into that upper echelon, top 5 in the country, and they would be the lead dog in the East to be playing and representing the SEC championship game. So you're right. I mean, expectations for Georgia and Florida aren't necessarily on the same level, but if Georgia loses this, I mean, you're right. I mean, we'll wake up Sunday morning and we're like, season's over. We're going to Tampa. So
I got Georgia winning this one 28-20 somewhere. somewhere in there, score in the 20s, Georgia winning by 8 points is where I'm heading.
Which is what Vegas thinks. I mean, as of today, it's right about 6 points. So I think it's going to be a touchdown ball game. It's going to come to turnovers and third down conversion for Georgia offensively. I think it's going to be like a 30-23 ball game.
All right, thanks for hanging on the Bulldog Breakdown. We'll do it again next week.